I never thought it would hurt this much, I whispered to myself as I stood at the back of the room, watching my son, Ben, thank his stepfather, Mark, at his graduation. The applause echoed in my ears, but all I could hear was the crushing silence between me and Ben. For the first time in his life, he spoke the words I had hoped never to hear. I had spent years shaping his life, teaching him right from wrong, yet here he was, thanking a man who hadn't been there for him in the same way. Mark, who had taken my place in our home, in our lives. The anger bubbled up, but I held it in. It wasn't the time, not here. But deep inside, the wound was fresh, raw. My mind raced back to the days when Ben was just a little boy. The days when it was just the two of us, playing catch in the backyard, laughing over stupid jokes, sharing our lives. It was simple then. It was real. But now, I was a stranger to him, replaced by someone else. Ben didn't even see it coming. He didn't see the way I flinched when he called Mark, Dad, in front of everyone. It wasn't just a title, it was a slap in the face. My heart sank, and for a moment I thought I couldn't breathe. I had given everything to raise him. I'd worked long hours, sacrificed my own dreams, all to make sure Ben had everything he needed. And now, after all of that, he was thanking a man who hadn't done any of that. I could feel the room close in around me as Ben's words echoed in my mind. He didn't see the man standing at the back of the room, the man who had been there through every scraped knee, every sleepless night, every birthday. He didn't see the man who had watched him grow from a little boy into the young man standing in front of everyone. As the ceremony continued, I felt the weight of the years pressing down on me. Years of hard work, years of love, years of sacrifice, all overshadowed by one simple gesture. I wanted to scream, to tell Ben how much it hurt, but I couldn't. I had to stay calm. I had to keep my composure. But inside, everything was falling apart. It wasn't just the words he said, it was the way he looked at Mark. The way he smiled at him. The way he acted like I wasn't even there. I wanted to walk up to the stage, pull him aside, and tell him everything that was running through my mind, but I didn't. I couldn't. Not in front of all those people. So I stood there, frozen, watching as my own flesh and blood gave his thanks to another man. And then it happened. Ben's eyes met mine across the room. For just a moment, time seemed to stand still. But the connection wasn't the same. It wasn't the same as it had been before. It wasn't the father-son bond one had spent so many years building. It was a distance I couldn't bridge. A distance that had been growing for months, maybe even years. And in that moment, I realized I had lost him. Not to Mark, not to anyone else, but to time, to the way things had changed, to the way he had changed. I wanted to walk up there, grab him, shake him, make him see what was happening. But I didn't. I just stood there, holding back the tears, holding back everything that was about to break. And then, with one final look, I turned and walked away. I walked out of the auditorium, each step heavy with the weight of everything I had just witnessed. My heart was pounding, my mind racing. The crowd's applause still echoed in my ears, but it felt like a distant, muffled sound. I wasn't sure where I was going, only that I couldn't stay in that room any longer. The world felt suffocating, every breath harder than the last. I made it outside and stood on the steps of the building, the cool air hitting my face like a slap. I needed to clear my head, but the images from inside kept replaying in my mind. Ben, standing there with a proud smile, thanking Mark like I was invisible. He didn't even hesitate, didn't even look at me when he spoke those words. And Mark. That smug look on his face, as if he had every right to be there, every right to be called Dad. It wasn't just about the words. It was about the complete erasure of everything I had done for that kid. I raised him. I taught him. I stayed up late when he had nightmares. I showed up for every school event, every soccer game, and every birthday. I was there. I always had been. But now, I was a shadow in his life. The thought of that drove a wedge deeper into my chest. I stood there for what felt like hours, lost in my own thoughts. But then my phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me back into the moment. I looked down at the screen and saw Ben's name flashing. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to face him. I wasn't ready to hear him try to justify what had just happened. What could he possibly say to make it better? To make me feel like I wasn't losing him? The thought made me sick to my stomach. I walked back to my car, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. I didn't know where I was driving, but I knew I needed to be alone. I needed to think. To make sense of everything that had just happened. The drive was long, and my thoughts were darker with each passing mile. I couldn't shake the feeling that Ben was slipping away from me. The boy I had raised, the boy I had loved, was turning into someone else. Someone who didn't need me anymore. I stopped at a quiet diner on the edge of town, hoping to clear my head. The place was empty except for a few people sitting at the counter, drinking coffee. I sat down at the booth and ordered a coffee, the only thing that could keep my mind from spiraling. As I sipped the bitter drink, I realized something. I had been so focused on what I had lost that I hadn't thought about what I still had. I had a chance to fix this. To fix my relationship with Ben. Maybe I had been too passive, too willing to let him drift. Maybe it was time to stop being silent, to stop letting him push me away. I wasn't ready to give up on him. Not yet. I paid for the coffee and left the diner, determined to make things right. I had to find Ben. I had to talk to him. I couldn't let this be the end of our relationship. I wouldn't let it. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy feeling still weighing on me. I had barely slept, my mind racing all night long. I hadn't heard from Ben, and that was eating at me. I couldn't help but wonder if he even cared. I knew he had been caught up in the moment, but still, to see him look at Mark that way, to see him so easily shift his affection, it cut deeper than I ever expected. I grabbed my phone and stared at it for a few moments before finally sending a text, "We need to talk." It felt like the only thing I could do, but even as I sent it, I wondered if it was enough. Was he really ready to listen? Was I? I didn't know. What if this was just the beginning of him pulling away for good? I shook my head, trying to push the negative thoughts aside. I couldn't keep thinking like that. I had to face this head on. I needed to be the man I used to be. The man who fought for what mattered. It was time to fix this. I had to find him. I drove over to Ben's apartment, my hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly. The neighborhood looked the same, the trees lining the street, the houses in their neat rows. But nothing felt the same. Not anymore. I parked outside his place and sat there for a moment, staring at the door. What if he wasn't even home? What if he was avoiding me? I took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, walking toward the door with a sense of determination that felt strange, almost foreign. I knocked softly. The door opened, and there he was. Ben. He looked at me with those same eyes I had watched grow up, the ones that used to trust me without question. Now, there was uncertainty in them. I could see it. "Hey, Dad," he said quietly. His voice was soft, not like it usually was, not the confident tone he used when he was younger. It made my chest tighten. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady, though it felt like I was holding back something much stronger. Ben nodded, stepping aside to let me in. I walked in, my mind swirling. This was it. This was the moment. I wasn't sure where we were going, but I had to try. "Ben, I saw what happened yesterday. And I need to understand." I started, but Ben cut me off before I could finish. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Dad," he said quickly, his voice breaking. I don't know what happened. I felt like it was the right thing to do. Mark's been there for me, and I know." I interrupted, my voice a little more firm than I meant. "I know he's been there. But I've been here too. For everything. Don't you see that? You were my world, Ben. You still are. And you're my son, no matter who else comes along." I paused, trying to keep my emotions in check. "But it feels like I've been replaced. And I can't pretend that doesn't hurt." There was silence between us, heavy and thick, like the air before a storm. Ben looked down at his feet, his hands shoved into his pockets. "I'm sorry, Dad," he finally whispered. "I never meant for it to be like this. I don't know what to do." My heart broke in that moment. This wasn't just about Mark. It was about everything, the years of building, the moments I thought we shared, the trust one thought we had. And now, it felt like it was slipping away, like sand through my fingers. "You don't have to have it all figured out," I said softly. "But I'm here, Ben. I'm not going anywhere." Ben's eyes met mine again, and for the first time in a long while, I saw something that resembled hope. We had a long road ahead of us, but maybe, just maybe, this was the first step toward finding our way back to each other. The days that followed were quiet, almost painfully so. Ben and I didn't speak much, but there was an unspoken understanding between us, a recognition that we were both trying to rebuild something we thought we had lost. He had reached out to me a few times, but each time I hesitated, unsure of what to say. The weight of everything still hung heavy in the air, but I could feel the tiniest shift. The connection wasn't completely gone. It couldn't be. Not after everything we had shared. But it was different now. It wasn't just about me trying to reclaim my place in his life. It was about him finding his way back to me. The phone buzzed one evening while I was sitting at the kitchen table, trying to work through the clutter in my mind. I picked it up and saw Ben's name. I had been avoiding his calls, unsure of what the right thing to do was. But tonight felt different. Maybe he felt it too. "Dad," the text began, *I've been thinking. I know I messed up. I want to make things right, but I don't know how. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I debated how to respond. I wasn't sure if he was ready for a full conversation yet, but I couldn't leave him hanging. I typed back, *It's okay. We'll figure it out. Let's talk tomorrow. The reply came almost immediately. Thanks, Dad. I mean it. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. For the first time in days, I felt a little lighter. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was just the beginning of a new chapter. The next day, we met at a small park near my house. The weather was clear, the sun shining down, but there was still a cool breeze in the air. We sat on a bench, the sound of children playing in the background, but neither of us said anything for a while. I didn't know where to start. Ben was the first to break the silence. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened, Dad," he said, his voice steady, but there was something in his eyes, something I hadn't seen in a long time. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. I guess I was just confused. Mark has been there for me, and I thought it was what I was supposed to do. But I see now that I hurt you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. This was the step toward healing. I had to remind myself that it wasn't about holding on to the past. It was about moving forward. "Ben," I began, my voice soft but firm. "You didn't do anything wrong. You're allowed to love Mark. But I've always been here for you. I'm your father. No one can change that. And no one ever will." I paused, looking into his eyes, hoping he understood. "You don't need to choose between us. But I need to know that you're still with me. I need to know that you see me. That I'm not just the guy who used to be there." There was a long pause as Ben looked down at his hands, his fingers nervously tapping the bench. "I do see you, Dad," he said, his voice small but sincere. "I've always seen you. I just got lost for a while. But I'm here now. I want to fix this." I smiled, a weight lifting off my chest. It wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be quick. But this was the start. A fresh start. "We'll get through this," I said. "We'll figure it out together." And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. It's been a few weeks since that conversation with Ben, and things have started to feel a little more normal. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. We started talking more, sharing the small moments we used to, like we were finding our way back to each other one step at a time. But there were still times when the distance felt too wide, when I could feel the shadow of everything that had happened hanging between us. I kept telling myself to be patient, that things would heal in time. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I wasn't going to give up on him, not now, not after everything. One Saturday afternoon, I found myself sitting on the porch with a cold beer in hand, just watching the world go by. I didn't expect Ben to show up, but there he was, walking up the driveway, his hands stuffed in his pockets. He looked like he had something on his mind. "Hey, Dad," he said, his voice unsure, like he wasn't sure if he should be here. I smiled, trying to make him feel at ease. "Hey, Ben. What's up?" He stood there for a moment, looking down at the ground, before finally sitting down next to me. There was a long pause, but I could feel the weight of the words he was trying to find. "I've been thinking a lot," he said, his voice quiet. "About everything. About how things have been. And I don't know. I guess I've been holding back." "Holding back from what?" I asked, trying to keep the tone light, even though I could feel the tension in my chest. He sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. "Holding back from you. From really talking to you. I've been trying to figure things out, but I've been scared. Scared that I've messed up too much. That I can't fix it." I looked at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes. This wasn't the confident young man I had seen a few months ago. This was the boy who used to need me, who used to look up to me. And in that moment, I realized how much I had missed him. "Ben, you don't have to fix anything," I said softly. "We just need to take it one day at a time. You're still my son. That hasn't changed." He looked at me, his eyes searching mine like he was looking for reassurance. And in that moment I could see it, the spark of hope, the desire to make things right. "I know, Dad. I didn't realize how much I had taken you for granted. I was so focused on trying to please everyone else, trying to make Mark proud, that I forgot what really mattered." I nodded slowly, feeling a weight lifting off my shoulders. "It's okay, Ben. We all make mistakes. But you're here now. And that's what matters." There was another pause, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a moment of understanding, of both of us realizing that things weren't perfect, but they didn't need to be. We had time. Time to rebuild, time to grow, time to make up for lost moments. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the yard, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Grateful for this moment, for the chance to fix things, for the chance to have my son back. And as we sat there, side by side, the silence between us felt like the calm after a storm. The storm wasn't over, but we were stronger for it. And that was enough. The weeks that followed were filled with small steps forward. Ben and I spent more time together, but it wasn't always easy. There were moments when the distance between us felt like it was still there, just under the surface, waiting to pull us apart again. But we kept talking. Slowly, things began to shift. I could see the changes in him, in the way he looked at me, the way he started to care again. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. One Saturday morning, Ben called me out of the blue. "Hey, Dad, you busy today?" he asked. I could hear the hesitation in his voice, but there was something else too, something new. "No, not really." "What's up?" I replied, trying to hide the excitement in my voice. "I was thinking, maybe we could go grab lunch. Just us. I mean, I don't know if you're up for it." His words felt like a weight lifting off my chest. We hadn't spent that kind of time together in months, maybe even longer. "I'd like that," I said. "Let's do it." We met at a diner in town, the same place we used to go when he was younger. The moment I saw him walking through the door, something inside me clicked. This was the first time in a long time that I saw Ben truly looking like himself again. He wasn't the son who was torn between me and Mark, not the confused kid who had been unsure of where he belonged. He was just Ben. "You doing okay?" I asked, the words coming out before I could stop them. He looked at me, his eyes softening. "Yeah, Dad. I am. Things are better, I guess." We sat down, and for the first time in what felt like forever, it was easy. There was no tension, no awkward silences, just the two of us talking about life. The conversation wasn't forced, it wasn't filled with the heavy topics we had been avoiding. We talked about work, about the stupid things that happened in his week, about my attempts at cooking dinner that had failed miserably. We laughed, and for a moment, I forgot about everything else. It was just us. After lunch, we walked around the town for a bit, the afternoon sun casting long shadows on the ground. It was quiet, but not in the way it used to be. It was peaceful, like we were finally finding our way back to something that had been lost. As we stood outside, I looked at him and said, "You know, I'm proud of you. I know things have been tough, but you're doing great." He smiled, a small but genuine smile that made everything feel worth it. "Thanks, Dad. I'm trying." It wasn't the perfect moment. Things weren't completely fixed. But in that moment, I realized that we didn't need everything to be perfect. We just needed to keep trying. And as we walked together back to the car, I knew that no matter what happened next, we were going to be okay. Not because everything had been fixed, but because we had both made the decision to keep moving forward. Together. It had been a few months since that day at the diner, and while things between Ben and I had improved, there were still moments when the weight of the past felt too heavy to ignore. I could see the change in him, but I could also feel the distance that had formed between us, like an invisible wall we were both trying to tear down. There were still the occasional awkward silences, the moments when the tension crept back in, but we kept pushing forward. One afternoon, Ben came over to my house. He had called earlier, asking if we could talk. His voice sounded different, serious. I was curious but didn't want to jump to conclusions. I set up a couple of chairs on the porch, just like we used to when he was younger, and waited for him. When he arrived, he sat down slowly, as if he was carrying something heavy with him. I could tell he was nervous. I tried to keep my expression neutral, but I was anxious too. "What's on your mind, Ben?" I asked. He looked at me for a moment, then sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, about you, about me, about everything that happened." He paused, and I waited, not wanting to rush him. "I just feel like I've been letting you down, Dad. I know we've been trying to make things better, but I don't know if I've really been doing enough. I don't know if I'm making up for everything I did. I keep wondering if I've ruined things for good." His words hit me like a punch in the gut. I hadn't expected him to be so open, so vulnerable. My son, the one I had watched grow up, was sitting in front of me, questioning himself, questioning everything. "Ben, listen. To me," I said softly, leaning forward. "You haven't ruined anything. You made a mistake. We all do. But the fact that you're here, that you're talking to me, that means more than you'll ever know." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with uncertainty, but there was something else there too, hope. "But I feel like I've hurt you, Dad. I've hurt you in a way I can't fix." I shook my head, taking a deep breath. "You didn't hurt me the way you think you did. I was hurt because I thought I lost you. But the fact that you're here now, the fact that you're trying, that's what matters. Not what's been lost, but what's still here. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm still your father, Ben, and I always will be." There was a long silence between us, the kind that felt peaceful instead of uncomfortable. Ben wiped his eyes and nodded slowly, as if he was starting to understand what I meant. "I don't know how to make things right," he said quietly. "But I want to try. I want to be the son you deserve." I reached across the table, placing my hand on his. "You're already doing it, Ben. You don't need to fix everything. Just be here. That's enough for me." He squeezed my hand, a quiet promise in the gesture. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were finally moving in the right direction, like the road ahead, no matter how long, was one we would walk together. It's been a few months since that conversation with Ben, and while things have been getting better, there are still times when I can't help but feel the weight of the past. We've made progress, sure, but there are still moments that catch me off guard. Like when I see Mark at the store, or when Ben talks about him like he's his father. It stings, but I've learned to accept it. We can't change the past, but we can build something better from here on out. One evening, Ben called me again, his voice more upbeat than usual. Hey, Dad. I'm thinking about doing something this weekend. Would you like to come with me? I smiled to myself, hearing the excitement in his voice. Of course, Ben. What's the plan? He hesitated for a moment, as if unsure how I would react, but then he spoke again, his words spilling out. I'm going to the old lake cabin. You know, the one we used to go to when I was younger. I thought it'd be good for us to go back. Just the two of us. Maybe make some new memories. I felt my chest tighten with emotion. The old cabin was where we had spent so many summers together. It was our place, a place full of memories of fishing trips, lazy afternoons by the water, and laughter echoing through the trees. It felt like a lifetime ago. But maybe that's what we needed. A fresh start in a place that had always been ours. I'd love to, I said, my voice a little thicker than usual. Let's go. The weekend came quickly, and as I drove toward the cabin, memories of the past flooded my mind. I remembered Ben as a little boy, his laughter filling the air as he chased after the dogs, his excitement when he caught his first fish. It felt surreal to think that so much time had passed, that so much had changed. We arrived at the cabin, and I could see Ben's eyes light up as he took in the familiar sights. The cabin was just as I remembered, old, worn, but filled with a sense of comfort and peace. It feels like home again, Ben said, standing on the porch and looking out at the lake. I miss this. I smiled, watching him as he took in the view. Me too, I replied, my voice full of nostalgia. We spent the day fishing, talking, and just being together. It wasn't anything special, but it was everything. It was the first time in a long while that I felt like we were really connecting. Like we were finding our way back to each other. As the sun began to set, we sat on the porch with a couple of beers, just watching the sky change colors. You know, Ben said, his voice quieter now. I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About not needing to fix everything. I nodded, encouraging him to go on. I think I've been trying too hard to make up for everything. I've been so focused on fixing the past that I didn't see that I already have everything I need right here. With you. I looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, and in that moment I knew we had come a long way. We're not perfect, Ben. But we're here. I said, my voice steady. And that's all that matters. The evening was calm, the air cool and refreshing, and for the first time in a long time, everything felt right. We didn't need to talk about the past anymore. The future was what mattered, and I could see that, together, we were ready to face whatever came next. It had been a few months since our trip to the cabin, and things were still progressing between Ben and me, but the pace was slower than I had hoped. We had our good days, but there were still times when the silence between us felt thick, like the past was just beneath the surface, threatening to pull us back. I kept reminding myself that this wasn't going to be a quick fix, that it would take time, but that didn't always make the waiting any easier. One afternoon, Ben called me again, his voice filled with a sense of urgency that caught my attention. Dad, can we meet up? There's something I need to talk to you about, he said. I could hear the tension in his tone, and my heart skipped a beat. I immediately agreed, not knowing what was coming but knowing that I needed to be there for him, no matter what. We met at a small park near his apartment. The weather was chilly, the leaves starting to turn in the late autumn air. Ben was already sitting on a bench when I arrived. He looked like he had been waiting for a while, but he still managed a small smile when he saw me. Hey, Dad, he said quietly as I sat down next to him. Thanks for meeting me. I could tell he was nervous, fidgeting with the sleeves of his jacket. Of course, Ben. What's going on? I asked, my voice gentle but full of concern. He took a deep breath before speaking, as if gathering his thoughts. I've been thinking a lot lately about everything, you know? About Mark, about the whole situation. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing by trying to keep everyone happy, trying to be who they want me to be. He paused, looking at the ground for a moment. I think I've been lost for a while, Dad. I've been so focused on pleasing others that I forgot about what really matters, what I really need. And now I'm stuck, not sure where I belong or who I really am. The words hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't that I hadn't noticed the confusion in Ben before, but hearing him admit it out loud made everything so real. This wasn't just about him trying to figure out his relationship with me and Mark. It was about him trying to figure out who he was in the middle of it all. Ben, you don't have to have it all figured out right now, I said, my voice full of compassion. You don't need to please anyone. You just need to be true to yourself. You've been through a lot, and it's okay not to have all the answers. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine for something, reassurance maybe, or just someone who understood. I've spent so much time trying to be the son I thought you wanted, the son Mark wanted, that I lost track of who I am. I don't know how to fix that. I put a hand on his shoulder, trying to ground him, trying to make him see that he wasn't alone. You don't need to fix anything, Ben. You're still the same person. You just need to take things one step at a time. It's okay to not have everything figured out. What matters is that you're here, you're trying, and that's enough. Ben nodded slowly, his expression softening. Thanks, Dad. I'm trying to figure it out, you know? I smiled, giving him a reassuring squeeze on the shoulder. I know you are. And I'm proud of you for it. We sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of everything between us starting to settle. I didn't have all the answers, and neither did Ben. But we had each other. And for the first time in a long while, that felt like enough. It had been a few weeks since Ben and I had that conversation at the park, and I could feel the difference in him. The tension between us had eased, replaced by a sense of understanding that wasn't there before. Still, there were moments when I caught him looking at me, like he was waiting for me to say something or do something, as if he was still unsure. I kept reminding myself that it would take time, that I needed to be patient. I was making progress, and so was he. We were learning how to rebuild a relationship that had been fractured, and that was enough for now. One evening, Ben invited me to dinner. I hadn't seen him in a few days, and I was looking forward to it. It was a simple gesture, but it meant a lot. We met at a small Italian restaurant, one we had gone to countless times when he was younger. It had always been our place, where we went to talk, to laugh, to just be together. The moment I walked in and saw him sitting at a table near the window, I felt a warmth in my chest. He looked up when he saw me and smiled. It was a small thing, but it made all the difference. We spent the next hour talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his work, about his friends, about the things he had been thinking about. I listened, genuinely interested in what he had to say. It was the first time in a while that I felt like we were truly connecting. I've been thinking about something, Ben said, his voice thoughtful. I raised an eyebrow, giving him my full attention. What's that? About Mark, he said, looking down at his hands. I've been wondering if I've been fair to him. He's done a lot for me, and I feel like I've been so focused on everything else that I haven't really acknowledged that. I nodded, understanding where he was coming from. It's okay to appreciate him, Ben, I said, my voice calm. He's been there for you, and that's something worth acknowledging. But remember, that doesn't change the fact that I'm your father. And no one can replace that. Ben looked up at me, his eyes filled with uncertainty. I know. It's just, sometimes I feel like I'm letting both of you down. You're not letting anyone down, I reassured him. You're figuring things out, and that's all anyone can ask for. You don't have to choose between anyone. You just need to be yourself. There was a long pause, and then Ben spoke again, his voice quieter this time. I think I'm starting to understand that. I think I've been so caught up in pleasing everyone else that I forgot what really matters. I smiled, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. You're learning, Ben. And that's all I could ever ask for. The evening ended on a peaceful note, and as we left the restaurant, I felt like we had made another step forward. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, and there would be more bumps along the way, but I knew that we were both trying. And that, in itself, was a victory. The relationship between Ben and me was slowly being repaired, one conversation, one moment at a time. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was all that mattered. It had been a few weeks since Ben and I had that heart-to-heart conversation at dinner, and although things were better, there were still days when I felt like we were walking on thin ice. Some days felt normal, but others felt like we were both waiting for the other to slip up. But something had shifted. I noticed it the first time Ben asked me for advice on something that wasn't about fixing a broken relationship or navigating the mess of the past. It was just him, asking me about life, like we used to do when he was younger. I couldn't help but smile at how natural it felt. One Saturday afternoon, Ben invited me to his place for lunch. When I arrived, he had a simple spread of sandwiches, chips, and drinks ready. It wasn't anything fancy, but it felt like a small victory, a step forward from the strained conversations we'd had just a few months ago. As we sat down to eat, the conversation started with small talk, work, his friends, my new hobby of gardening, and even the weather, but then he looked at me, a little more serious than before. "Dad," he said, taking a deep breath, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About how I don't need to try to fix everything, and that it's okay to just be myself." He paused, his eyes searching for the right words. "I think I've been holding on to the past too much. I've been so focused on what's wrong that I haven't really taken the time to appreciate what's right. I've been afraid to just live, you know?" My heart swelled at his words. I hadn't realized how much he had been carrying, how deeply he had been affected by everything. "Ben, you don't have to carry that weight anymore," I said softly. "You've learned a lot already. Life isn't about having all the answers or fixing everything. It's about finding balance, living in the moment, and knowing that you don't have to do it alone." Ben nodded slowly, his face softening. "I know, Dad. It's just, sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. Like I've let you down, or Mark, or even myself." He sighed, looking down at his hands. "But I think I'm starting to see that it's okay to just be me. And it's okay to not have everything figured out." "It is," I said, my voice full of warmth. "We all have our struggles, Ben. But you've always had a good heart. And that's all that matters." There was a quiet pause between us as I let his words settle. "I want you to know something," I said after a moment, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "I'm proud of you. You're doing the best you can, and that's all I can ever ask for. You've come so far, and I'm here for you, no matter what." Ben looked at me, his eyes searching mine for something, reassurance, maybe, or confirmation. And in that moment, I realized just how far we had come. It wasn't about perfection, or about erasing the past. It was about moving forward together. "Thanks, Dad," he said quietly, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "I really appreciate that." We finished lunch in a comfortable silence, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like we were walking on eggshells. The distance between us, the uncertainty, it was still there, but it didn't feel like it was driving us apart anymore. It felt like we were finding our way back, one conversation, one moment at a time. It had been a few months since that lunch, and Ben and I were starting to find a new rhythm. Things weren't perfect, but they didn't need to be. We were both learning how to live with the changes, how to adapt to the new normal. There were still bumps along the way, but they didn't feel as heavy as they once did. One evening, I found myself sitting in the same chair I had spent so many nights in, watching the sun set through the window. It was one of those quiet moments, the kind where you reflect on how far you've come. I was about to pour myself another drink when my phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from Ben. "Dad, I've been thinking. I know I said I wanted to make things right, but I think I've been holding back." I stared at the message for a moment, unsure of what to expect. It had been a while since he'd sent me anything like this. I replied, "What's on your mind?" He didn't reply right away, and I felt my heart beat a little faster as the minutes ticked by. Then, the phone buzzed again. "I've been seeing things a little differently lately. I think I've been afraid to really talk about what happened. To talk about Mark and everything that went down, my mind raced. This was it, the conversation I had been expecting but dreading all at once. I didn't want to rush him, but I couldn't let the moment slip away either. I sent back, "Whenever you're ready, we can talk." He responded almost immediately. How about tomorrow? I know I've been avoiding it, but I think I need to say everything that's on my mind. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. This was a good sign. This meant he was ready to open up, ready to move forward, just like I had been. I texted back, "I'll be here, Ben." The next day, we met at a coffee shop, a neutral place where we could talk without the weight of home or old memories hanging over us. I saw him waiting outside when I pulled up, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his posture tense. But as soon as he saw me, his expression softened, and I could see the tension start to leave his shoulders. "Hey, Dad," he said, his voice more relaxed than I had heard in weeks. "Thanks for meeting me." I smiled at him, trying to make him feel at ease. "Of course, Ben. What's on your mind?" We sat down at a table, and for a few moments neither of us said anything. I could tell he was gathering his thoughts, trying to figure out how to say what he needed to say. Finally, he spoke. "I think I've been running from the truth for too long," he said, his voice steady. "I've been trying to keep the peace, trying to make everyone happy, and I've ended up making myself miserable. I didn't want to face it, but I need to." He paused, and I saw the sincerity in his eyes. "I've been carrying a lot of guilt about what happened. About how I handled things with Mark and how I treated you. And I think I need to own up to it. I can't just pretend everything's fine anymore." I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. This was the moment I had been hoping for, the moment when Ben took responsibility for his part in everything that had gone wrong. "It's okay, Ben," I said softly. "We all make mistakes. But what matters is that you're here now, and you're ready to face it. That means more to me than you'll ever know." He smiled slightly, and for the first time in a long time, I saw a flicker of relief in his eyes. "Thanks, Dad. I've been trying to figure out how to make things right, but I think I just needed to start with being honest. I don't want to keep hiding from it anymore." We sat in silence for a moment, both of us taking in what had just been said. I knew this wasn't the end of our journey, but it felt like a breakthrough. We were finally at a point where we could face the past and start working towards something better. And for the first time in months, I felt hopeful. Not because everything was fixed, but because we were willing to try. Together. After that conversation with Ben, things started to settle into a more peaceful rhythm. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like we were moving in the right direction. Ben and I talked more, not just about the past, but about everything. The small moments that had once seemed so insignificant now felt like they mattered more than ever. There were still moments of uncertainty, but they didn't feel as heavy. We were learning how to move forward, slowly but surely. One evening, Ben came over to the house again, unannounced. It was still early, and the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden light through the windows. He looked a little nervous, which was unusual for him, but I could tell he had something important on his mind. "Hey, Dad," he said, standing in the doorway. "Got a minute?" I smiled and waved him inside. "Of course, Ben. Come on in." He sat down across from me, his eyes looking anywhere but at me for a moment. I could tell he was trying to find the right words. Finally, he spoke. "I've been thinking about the future, about where I'm going, and I realized something. I don't have everything figured out, but I know one thing. I want to be a better son. I want to be someone you can count on, not just when things are good, but all the time." His words caught me off guard, and for a moment, I was at a loss for what to say. This was the same boy who had been so lost, so unsure just a few months ago. And now, here he was, standing before me, ready to take responsibility for his part in everything. I swallowed hard, my throat tightening with emotion. "Ben, I'm proud of you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I know it hasn't been easy, but I see the change in you. And that means more to me than you can imagine. He smiled, a small but genuine smile that made everything feel lighter. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. There was a brief silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that comes after a long conversation, when everything is out in the open. I know things haven't been perfect, Ben continued, but I don't want to lose what we have. I want to keep working on it. I want to keep being there for you, the way you've always been there for me. My heart swelled with pride. It wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about the future. The fact that Ben was willing to put in the effort, to show up when it mattered most, meant everything to me. We'll take it one day at a time, Ben, I said, smiling. No matter what happens, we'll figure it out. Together. We spent the rest of the evening talking about life, about the things we wanted to do in the future. There was no rush, no pressure, just two people who were learning how to be a family again. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. We had come so far, and I knew that, no matter what the future held, we would face it together. We weren't perfect, but we were trying. And that was enough.